The silent approach the observation deck of the USS Valkyrie hummed with a low, steady vibration that Captain Sarah Chen had grown to find comforting over her 15 years in the Earth Defense Fleet. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, staring out at the impossible darkness of deep space. Out here, between star systems, light itself seemed to die. It was the kind of void that made even experienced spacers feel small. Behind her, the automatic door hissed open. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Commander James Okoye always walked with purpose, his footsteps measured and deliberate. "Captain," he said, his Nigerian accent still thick despite decades off-world. "The fleet is holding formation. All 63 ships reporting ready status." Sarah nodded slowly. 63 ships. It sounded impressive until you remembered they were going up against an empire that controlled 200 star systems. The Vrekoth Empire had been expanding aggressively for 3 centuries, and they had the military might to back up their ambitions. "How long until we reach the quantum displacement point?" she asked. 4 hours, 17 minutes, James replied. He moved to stand beside her, his reflection appearing in the reinforced viewport. "The crews are nervous. They've heard the stories." Sarah allowed herself a bitter smile. Stories. Yes, humanity had plenty of those now. 5 years ago, Earth had made first contact with the Galactic community. Humanity had been so excited, so hopeful. They imagined trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. Instead, they found a galaxy divided into territories ruled by species that had been fighting each other for millennia. Earth was seen as young, naive, and weak. The Vrekoth had tested that weakness immediately. 3 human colonies on the outer rim had been targeted. The aliens hadn't even bothered with formal declarations of war. They simply arrived, bombarded the settlements from orbit, and claimed the planets as their own. 17,000 human civilians died in those attacks. The Galactic Council had done nothing. They offered condolences and suggested Earth accept its position as a minor species without territorial rights. The message was clear: humans didn't matter. "Tell me honestly, James," Sarah said quietly. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Her second-in-command was silent for a long moment. "The diplomats aboard the Horizon are still sending messages demanding we turn back. Ambassador Williams called you a warmonger in his last transmission. That's not an answer." James turned to face her fully. "Captain, I lost my sister in the New Mombasa colony attack. She was a teacher. She was helping children learn to read when the Vrekoth plasma bombs turned her school into glass." His jaw tightened. "The right thing? I stopped caring about philosophy when I identified her body. Now I only care about results." Sarah understood that pain. She carried her own. Her nephew had been on New Mombasa too. He was 7 years old. The door opened again, and this time it was Lieutenant Maya Reeves, the fleet's intelligence officer. She was young, barely 30, but she had a mind that could process tactical data faster than most computers. "Captain, we've finished analyzing the data from our scout drones," Maya said, holding up a data tablet. "The Vrekoth have no idea we're coming. Their long-range sensors are focused on the Krill border. They're expecting an attack from their traditional enemies, not from us." "Show me," Sarah commanded. Maya projected a holographic display into the air. It showed the Vrekoth stronghold of Zenthar, a massive military installation built into an asteroid field. The base controlled 36 star systems and served as the launching point for Vrekoth expansion into what they called primitive territories. That category included Earth's colonial sphere. Current Vrekoth forces at Zenthar include 92 warships, divided into 4 battle groups, Maya continued. Their fleet composition favors heavy cruisers and dreadnoughts, slow, heavily armored, designed for traditional engagements where both sides see each other coming from millions of kilometers away. James leaned forward. "And they have no idea what quantum displacement can do." Sarah studied the hologram. Quantum displacement was humanity's secret. While other species had developed faster than light travel through various means, humans had accidentally discovered something different while experimenting with quantum entanglement. They found a way to move objects through compressed space without actually traveling the distance between. It wasn't faster than light. It was no distance at all. A ship using quantum displacement could vanish from one point and appear at another instantaneously, with no warning, no energy signature, no way for an enemy to detect the approach. The technology was still experimental, still dangerous. There had been accidents. The USS Prometheus had been lost during testing. its crew scattered across 50 light-years of space when the displacement field collapsed. But it worked, and humanity had kept it secret from the rest of the galaxy. "They'll never see us coming," Sarah said softly. "We'll appear directly in their midst, weapons already locked, firing solutions already calculated." "It'll be a massacre," James said. There was no joy in his voice, just cold acknowledgement. Maya shifted uncomfortably. "Captain, the diplomatic corps has filed an official protest. They're arguing that a surprise attack violates the Galactic warfare conventions. They say we should issue a formal challenge, give the Vrakoth a chance to negotiate." Sarah's expression hardened. The Galactic warfare conventions are written by species that have the luxury of playing by rules. They're designed to make war predictable, manageable, something that doesn't threaten the established order. She turned to face both officers. "Earth isn't part of that order. We're the newcomers, the primitives, the species that doesn't deserve a voice. And when we tried to talk, tried to negotiate, the Vrakoth answered by murdering our people." She brought up another image on the hologram. It showed surveillance footage from New Mombasa colony in its final moments. Buildings exploding, people running, children screaming. The footage cut off when the camera itself melted. "This is what the Vrakoth think of diplomacy with humans," Sarah said, her voice cutting like ice. "They don't see us as equals. They see us as resources to be exploited or obstacles to be removed. So no, Lieutenant Reeves, we will not be issuing a formal challenge. We will not give them time to prepare. We will not play by rules that were designed to keep species like us powerless." Maya swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, Captain." The hours passed slowly. Sarah made her rounds through the Valkyrie, visiting each section of the ship. She stopped by engineering, where Chief Engineer Robert Torres was making final adjustments to the quantum displacement drive. She visited the medical bay, where Dr. Amira Hassan was preparing for casualties. She walked through the Marine barracks, where Major Koji Tanaka was giving his troops a final briefing. Everywhere she went, she saw the same thing in people's eyes. Fear, yes, but also determination. These weren't career soldiers looking for glory. These were ordinary people who had joined the fleet because someone had to stand up for Earth. They were engineers who used to design civilian transports. They were doctors who used to work in city hospitals. They were mechanics, teachers, farmers, and scientists who had put on uniforms because their species needed them. With 30 minutes remaining until displacement, Sarah returned to the bridge. The command center of the Valkyrie was arranged in tiers, with the captain's chair elevated above the crew stations. Tactical displays covered the walls, showing the positions of all 63 ships in the fleet. "All ships reporting ready," James announced from his station. "Quantum drives charged and synchronized. Weapons systems armed. Marine boarding teams standing by." Sarah settled into her chair. "Open a channel to the fleet. All ships, all personnel." A moment later, Maya nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah took a breath. She had prepared a speech, something inspiring about duty and sacrifice, but looking at the faces on her bridge, at the young men and women who were about to risk everything, the prepared words felt hollow. "This is Captain Chen," she began simply. "In a few minutes, we're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to strike at the heart of an empire that thinks we're too weak to fight back. They're wrong. They've always been wrong about humanity." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I won't lie to you. Some of us won't be coming home. War isn't clean and it isn't fair. But what we're doing today isn't just about revenge. It's about sending a message to every species in this galaxy. Earth will not be bullied. Humanity will not be erased. And anyone who tries to destroy us will learn what it means to face a species that refuses to surrender." She could see crew members straightening at their stations, fear giving way to resolve. The Vrakoth chose this war when they murdered our civilians. They chose this outcome when they ignored every attempt at peace. "We didn't want this fight, but now that it's here, we're going to finish it." Sarah's voice grew harder. "In 15 minutes, we jump. When we arrive, there will be no hesitation, no mercy, no second chances. We hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we don't stop until they understand that humanity is not prey." She looked around her bridge. "Every person on this fleet is here because they believe Earth deserves to survive. Let's prove we were right to believe." "Chen out." The channel closed. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the steady beep of countdown timers. 10 minutes to displacement," Maya called out. Sarah watched the clock count down. 9 minutes, 8, 7. Each second felt like an eternity. She thought about the families back on Earth, waiting for news. She thought about the colonies that depended on the fleet's success. She thought about her nephew and how he had smiled the last time she visited him before deployment. 5 minutes. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, running final system checks, confirming coordinates, synchronizing the quantum drives across all 63 ships. This had to be perfect. If even one ship displaced to the wrong coordinates, if the timing was off by even a second, the whole attack would fall apart. 2 minutes. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. This was it. The point of no return. In 2 minutes, Earth would either announce itself as a power to be feared, or the fleet would be destroyed and humanity's colonies would be left defenseless. 1 minute. All ships confirm ready status. Displacement coordinates locked. Sarah gripped the arms of her chair. Weapons free on arrival. All ships engage at will. No warnings. 30 seconds. The bridge lights dimmed as power was diverted to the quantum drives. Sarah could feel the ship vibrating, reality itself beginning to bend around them. 15 seconds. Displacement field stabilizing. This was for New Mombasa, for New Shanghai, for New Lagos, for every human life the Vrakoth had taken. 10, 9, 8. Sarah leaned forward. All ships on my mark. 5, 4, 3. The universe held its breath. 2, 1, mark. Reality tore itself apart. The ghost strike. The universe snapped back together like a rubber band released at full tension. One moment the fleet was drifting in the empty darkness between stars. The next they were in the heart of enemy territory, surrounded by the Vrakoth stronghold of Zenthar. Sarah's stomach lurched as the quantum displacement completed. The sensation was like falling and being pulled upward at the same time, every atom in her body remembering it had just been somewhere else. She forced down the nausea and focused on the tactical display. They had arrived perfectly. The 63 human ships had materialized in a spherical formation around the Vrakoth fleet, appearing simultaneously at distances ranging from 500 to 2,000 kilometers. The enemy vessels hung in space like sleeping giants, their hulls dark and cold, their crews completely unaware that death had just arrived. All ships reporting successful displacement, James called out, his voice sharp with adrenaline. 0 casualties. We're in optimal firing positions. On the main view screen, Sarah could see the nearest Vrakoth dreadnought. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Valkyrie. Its hull covered in angular armor plates that looked like scales on some ancient predator. Weapon ports dotted its surface, each one capable of vaporizing a human ship with a single shot. Under normal circumstances, it would take a coordinated assault by a dozen vessels to bring down a ship like that. But these weren't normal circumstances. Tactical. Status report, Sarah ordered. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, her weapons officer, worked his console with rapid precision. All weapons locked and ready. Railgun batteries charged. Missile tubes loaded. Point defense systems online. Enemy shields are down. Repeat, enemy shields are down. They're completely exposed. Sarah felt a cold satisfaction. The Vrakoth hadn't even powered their defensive systems. Why would they? They were in their own territory, surrounded by their own fleet, protected by sensor networks that should have given them hours of warning before any attack. They had no reason to expect an enemy to simply appear among them. That arrogance was about to cost them everything. All ships, this is Valkyrie Actual. Sarah broadcast on the fleet channel. Execute attack pattern Omega, fire at will. I repeat, fire at will. The response was immediate and devastating. The human fleet opened fire as 163 ships unleashing everything they had. Railgun rounds, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance to their targets in seconds. Each round carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon, and they struck unshielded hulls with catastrophic results. Sarah watched as the nearest Vrakoth dreadnought seemed to shudder, its armor plating cracking like eggshell as 3 railgun rounds punched through its hull. Atmosphere vented in explosive bursts, carrying debris and bodies into the void. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship's spine as the rounds tore through internal compartments. Target Alpha 1 is crippled, Webb reported. Hull breaches on multiple decks. They're venting atmosphere and reactor coolant. But the railguns were just the opening move. Missiles followed, hundreds of them, streaking across the darkness on pillars of white fire. These weren't ordinary missiles. They were equipped with adaptive AI targeting systems, designed to adjust their approach in real time, to find weak points and exploit them. The Vrakoth finally realized they were under attack. Alarm klaxons began wailing across their fleet. Ships that had been dormant suddenly blazed with power as reactors came online. Shields started to activate, shimmering fields of energy trying to form around hulls that were already being torn apart. Too slow. Far too slow. Enemy fleet attempting to raise shields, Maya reported from her station. Their reaction time is approximately 42 seconds behind our attack. They're not built for this kind of engagement. Sarah understood. The Vrakoth, like most galactic military forces, were designed for traditional warfare. In a conventional battle, opposing fleets detected each other from millions of kilometers away. They had hours to prepare, to raise shields, to form battle lines, to calculate firing solutions. Combat was a slow, methodical process where positioning and endurance mattered more than speed. Humanity had just thrown those rules out the airlock. Second wave away, Webb announced. All missile salvos running hot and true. The missiles reached their targets. The Vrakoth had managed to activate some point defense systems, and streams of plasma fire began intercepting the incoming weapons. Explosions dotted the space between the fleets, but there were too many missiles coming from too many angles. For every one that was destroyed, 3 more got through. A Vrakoth heavy cruiser vanished in a ball of white fire as a missile struck its main reactor. The explosion was so bright that the Valkyrie's view screen automatically dimmed to protect the crew's eyes. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding debris and radiation. Confirmed kill on target Beta 7, Webb said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Target Beta 3 is breaking apart. Multiple hits along the keel. Target Alpha 5 is attempting to maneuver, but has lost main propulsion. Sarah watched the tactical display with cold focus. Each icon represented a Vrakoth ship, and they were winking out one by one. The enemy fleet was trying to respond, trying to coordinate, but they were completely unprepared. Their communication networks were scrambled. Their command structure was in chaos. Ships were firing wildly, some of them hitting their own vessels in the confusion. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Vrakoth flagship, Maya said. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking who's attacking them. Sarah felt a grim amusement. They didn't even know it was humans. In their panic and confusion, the Vrakoth probably thought they were being attacked by the Krill or some other traditional enemy. They couldn't conceive that the primitive species from Earth could strike with such precision and power. No response, Sarah ordered. Let them wonder. The battle, if it could even be called that, continued. The human fleet moved with practiced coordination, each ship executing its assigned role perfectly. Destroyers hunted down damaged Vrakoth vessels, finishing them off with precise railgun fire. Cruisers targeted the enemy's command ships, cutting off any chance of organized resistance. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier vessels, swarming around larger Vrakoth ships like insects, targeting weapon systems and sensor arrays. Enemy attempting to launch fighters, Webb reported, designating as targets for point defense. The Vrakoth fighter craft began emerging from their motherships, small single-pilot vessels designed for dogfighting. But they were launching into a kill zone, human point defense systems, controlled by AI that could track hundreds of targets simultaneously, opened fire. Laser arrays swept across space and Vrakoth fighters exploded by the dozens before they could even orient themselves. Captain, the enemy flagship is attempting to jump to FTL, Maya warned. They're charging their hyperspace drive. Sarah made a split-second decision. Valkyrie, intercept course, maximum burn. Webb, I want every railgun we have targeted on that flagship. They don't get to run. The Valkyrie's engines flared to full power, pressing the crew back into their seats as the ship accelerated. The enemy flagship was enormous, a dreadnought-class vessel that served as the command center for the entire Zenthar sector. If it escaped, if it carried word of what happened here, the Vrakoth would be prepared for quantum displacement tactics in future engagements. That couldn't be allowed. Firing solution locked, Webb announced. All forward batteries ready. Fire, Sarah commanded. The Valkyrie shuddered as every railgun on the forward arc discharged simultaneously. The rounds crossed the distance in seconds, and Sarah watched as they slammed into the flagship's engines just as the hyperspace drive was reaching critical charge. The result was spectacular and terrible. The hyperspace field, partially formed and unstable, collapsed inward on itself. Reality buckled. The flagship seemed to stretch, its hull distorting as conflicting forces tore at it. Then it simply ceased to exist. torn apart on a quantum level as the failed jump scattered its atoms across multiple dimensions. Flagship destroyed, Maya confirmed quietly. No debris. Complete molecular disintegration. James let out a slow breath. 37 enemy ships confirmed destroyed. 19 more are crippled and venting atmosphere. The remaining vessels are attempting to scatter, but they're not going to make it to minimum jump distance. Sarah checked her chronometer. From the moment they had displaced into the system to now, exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds had passed. In less than 5 minutes, humanity had decimated a fleet that the Vrakoth had spent decades building. All ships begin search and rescue operations, Sarah ordered. Any Vrakoth crew members who surrender are to be taken prisoner and treated according to the Galactic warfare conventions. Any ship that continues to fight is a legitimate target. Captain, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Vrakoth vessels, Maya reported. They're powering down weapons and opening their airlocks. Dispatch marine teams. Secure those ships and evacuate the wounded. Sarah stood from her chair, her legs feeling steadier now. And someone get me a casualty report on our fleet. The minutes ticked by as the human fleet secured the battlefield. Marine teams boarded crippled Vrakoth vessels, finding scenes of absolute devastation. The enemy crews had been completely unprepared. Many had died at their stations, never even understanding what had hit them. Final casualty report, James said, reading from his display. Human fleet. 7 ships with minor damage from debris impacts. 32 wounded, no fatalities. Vrakoth fleet, 68 ships destroyed or disabled. Estimated enemy casualties exceed 40,000. Sarah absorbed the numbers. 40,000 Vrakoth dead. It was a staggering figure, and she felt the weight of it. But then she remembered New Mombasa. 17,000 human civilians murdered without warning, without mercy. This wasn't revenge. This was a message. Captain, we're receiving incoming transmissions, Maya said, her eyes widening. Multiple channels. It's the Galactic communication networks. They're all trying to contact us. Put the primary channel on screen, Sarah ordered. The view screen shifted to show a krill diplomat, a species that resembled an upright insect with iridescent carapace armor. The krill had been fighting the Vrakoth for centuries, locked in an endless territorial dispute. The diplomat's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Human vessel, this is Ambassador Kretak of the Krill Confederacy. We detected massive energy discharges in Vrakoth space. What is your status? Are you under attack? Sarah allowed herself a cold smile. The Krill thought the humans were the ones being attacked. They had no idea that the primitive species from Earth had just destroyed one of the most powerful Vrakoth fleets in the galaxy. Ambassador, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are not under attack. We have successfully completed a military operation against Vrakoth forces in the Zenthar sector. The enemy fleet has been neutralized. There was a long pause. When Kretak spoke again, his translator struggled to convey his disbelief. You attacked Zenthar? The Vrakoth stronghold? That's impossible. The sensor networks alone should have given them hours of warning. How did you even approach the system? That information is classified, Sarah replied simply. What matters is that the Vrakoth base that was used to launch attacks against human colonies is no longer operational. Earth will defend its territory and its people by any means necessary. Another voice broke into the channel, this one belonging to a Vrakoth general broadcasting from a distant system. His species resembled bipedal reptiles, with scales that shifted through angry reds and oranges. This is an act of war, an unprovoked attack on Vrakoth's sovereign territory. The Empire will respond with total force. Sarah's expression hardened. Unprovoked? Your forces attacked 3 human colonies without warning. You murdered 17,000 civilians. You ignored every diplomatic protest, every call for negotiation. You declared war on humanity the moment you opened fire on defenseless settlements. We're simply answering that declaration. You primitive species dare to threaten the Vrakoth Empire? The general snarled. You have no concept of the forces you've provoked. We will crush your pathetic worlds and wipe your species from the galaxy. You can try, Sarah said coldly. But consider this. You had no idea we were coming. Your entire fleet at Zenthar was destroyed in less than 5 minutes. Your flagship was vaporized. Your forces surrendered or died without landing a single hit on our ships. And we did all of this using technology you didn't know we possessed. She leaned forward. So ask yourself, General, what else don't you know about humanity? What other surprises are we keeping? And are you really willing to bet your empire on finding out? The Vrakoth general's scales flashed through rapid color changes, betraying his uncertainty. Behind him, Sarah could see other Vrakoth military officers arguing in their harsh guttural language. A third voice entered the conversation, calmer and more measured. It belonged to Ambassador Velkara of the Galactic Council, a species that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. Captain Chen, the Council demands an immediate explanation. Your actions have violated multiple treaties and conventions. An emergency session is being convened. You are required to attend and answer for this attack. Sarah had expected this. The Galactic Council loved to talk, to negotiate, to maintain the status quo. They had done nothing when human colonies were destroyed. But now that humanity had fought back, suddenly there were violations and requirements. With respect, Ambassador, Earth is not bound by treaties we had no part in negotiating, Sarah replied. Your conventions were written by species that already had power and territory. They were designed to prevent newcomers like us from challenging the established order. We tried following your rules. We filed protests, requested mediation, asked for protection. You did nothing. So we protected ourselves. By committing a massacre, Velkara said softly. By defending our people, Sarah corrected. And by sending a message to every species in this galaxy. Humanity is not weak. We are not prey. We are not a resource to be exploited. We are a civilization that will fight for its survival. And we will win. The communication channels erupted into chaos. Dozens of species from powers she had never heard of, all trying to speak at once. Some were outraged. Some were fearful. Some were impressed. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and everyone knew it. Sarah muted the channels and turned to her crew. They were watching her with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. They had just participated in one of the most one-sided military victories in galactic history, and none of them were quite sure what it meant. Captain, James said quietly, what happens now? Sarah looked out at the debris field that had once been a Vrakoth fleet. What happens now? That was the question, wasn't it? Earth had just announced itself as a military power, but they were still vastly outnumbered. The Vrakoth Empire controlled hundreds of worlds. Other hostile species would be watching, calculating, deciding if humanity was a threat to be eliminated. Now, Sarah said finally, we go home. We tell Earth what happened here. We prepare for whatever comes next. She met James's eyes. We showed them we can fight. Now we need to show them we can win a war. The fleet began forming up for the journey home. As the Valkyrie's engines came online, Sarah took one last look at the battlefield. Somewhere in that debris field were 40,000 Vrakoth, who would never threaten another human colony. She felt no joy in their deaths, but she felt no guilt either. They had started this war. Humanity had simply finished this battle. The real war, Sarah knew, was just beginning. But now the galaxy understood something important. Humanity had entered the battlefield, and when they did, the enemy didn't last long enough to fight back. That was a lesson the Vrakoth would never forget. And every other species in the galaxy would learn it too. The Valkyrie turned toward home, its hull still warm from battle, carrying a crew that had just changed the course of galactic history. Behind them, the fires of Zenthar burned in the darkness, a warning beacon visible for light years. Earth had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.